right, in this last part with complex numbers, I just want to do a little bit more with the square roots. So we've added, we've subtracted, we've multiplied, divide. I just want to go through and simplify some square roots that'll have some imaginary pieces that pop up. So when performing operations with square roots of negative numbers, begin by expressing all square roots in terms of I, then perform the indicated operation. So we'll go through, we'll do it the correct way, and then I'll show you the incorrect way that people tend to go. So the correct way for us to do it is to pull out the I part of the problem first, like get rid of the imaginary part. So this is I square root of 25, and the square root of 25 is 5. So this problem becomes 5I. So we covered that last section. So this is the square root of negative 4. So this gives me 2I. 5I times 2I is 10I squared. I squared equals negative 1. So this problem becomes negative 10. The incorrect way to do this would be to do the square root of negative 25 times the square root of negative 4 and get a positive 100. Because you can't multiply those inside numbers like that because they have an imaginary piece to it. Because if you break down the square root of 100, you're going to think the answer is 10. But this is incorrect. So this is not the correct approach to do it. You want to take out the I part of the problem first and then break it down or simplify like you would normally. So with that said, let's go through some examples and practice taking out the imaginary section. So we're doing the square root of negative 18 minus the square root of negative 8. Step 1, take out the imaginary part. Go ahead and pull it out. Go ahead and put I on the outside. So I have I square root of 18 minus I square root of 8. Okay, easy peasy. All I did so far was take out the fact that it's imaginary. Now, just briefly, I'm going to ignore the imaginary part and I'm going to go through and do our factor trees. 18 factors into 9 and 2. This is 3 and 3. 8 factors into 4 and 2. And I got 2 and 2. So I am ignoring the negative part of the problem just for a minute, and I did our factor trees. Pairs go on the outside, everything else goes on the inside. So on the outside of this one term, 3 goes on the outside, and I have an I that goes on the outside. So this is 3I. On the inside, I have the number 2. So this is 3I square root of 2. Minus, on the outside here, I have a pair. Pairs go on the outside. I got a 2. And then I. So this is 2I. Now, these are like terms, quote unquote. This has a square root of 2 with a coefficient. This has a square root of 2 with a coefficient. So I just need to do 3I minus 2I. So it's no different if this was 3x minus 2x. They're like terms. So I just need to do 3I minus 2I. And that's going to give me 1I square root of 2. So our answer is 1I square root of 2. You do not need to put this 1 here. I only put it there so that if you're studying and looking back over, you'll know that we did 3 minus 2 to give us 1. But you do not need that 1 there. You probably more times than not would just see it I square root of 2. All right, next problem. We are going to square negative 1 plus the square root of negative 5. So when you square something, that means you're going to multiply it by itself. So let's write it out twice. Negative 1 plus the square root of negative 5 times negative 1 plus the square root of negative 5. So all I did so far was just recopy it out twice. Now I could do the box method or distributive property to multiply this out. Makes no difference. Let's do box. So negative 1 plus square root of negative 5. Set up my box. Boom, boom. And negative 1 plus square root of negative 5. Okay, giving you a chance to copy and catch up there. And we're going to go through and multiply. All right, negative 1 times negative 1 gives us 1. Negative 1 times this is going to give me negative 1 square root of negative 5. Square root of negative 5 times negative 1 is negative 1 square root of negative 5. And then these two, when I multiply this, keep in mind that's what we just got finished talking about. And I'm actually going to do a little side note off to the side. Do not do the square root of -5 times the square root of -5. I'm going to do a little side note off to the side. So I'm going to write that probably in this little space up here. So we are doing the square root of -5 times the square root of -5. Okay, so I'm doing a little side note. I'm up here. So square root of -5 times the square root of -5. Do not just make this the square root of 25. So this is actually I square root of 5 times I square root of 5. So I took out the I that's in this part, and I took out the I that's in this part. So we're doing a little side note so we can put our answer back down here. I times I is I squared, and the square root of 5 times the square root of 5 is the square root of 25. So this gives me I squared square root of 25. So I times I is I squared. Square root of 25 times the square root of 25 is 25. And the last thing I need to do, the square root of 25 is 5. I squared is -1. So this is -1 times 5. So this box becomes -5. So we did all of that and it simplified to -5. Again, this is just a little side note. So I had to multiply. Let me try to section this off for us just a little bit here. Okay, so this was us doing a little side note down here. So the square root of -5 times the square root of -5. We did a little scratch word off to the side up here, so we can break it all the way down, and we got -5. All right, we go through and we combine like terms. So I have the 1 and the -5 that goes together. So 1 minus 5 is -4. And then these two go together, and that gives me -2 square root of -5. Okay, we're about 99% done. I got a negative inside of my square root here. We need to take the I out of the problem. So this is -4 minus 2I square root 5. And that is our final answer. Okay, this problem had a lot of moving parts, had a lot of different things to it. Let me try to recap it quickly here. When you square something, that means you multiply it by itself. So that's why we wrote it out. You could do the box method or distributive property. This was the box that we had to break down a little bit more. Do not do the square root of -5 times the square root of -5 and get the square root of a positive 25, because our answer was not +5. Our answer turned out to be -5. So that's us up here in this little blue bubble. We did our little scratch word and broke it down, and it turned out to be -5. Then from there, we combine like terms. We put the real parts of the problem together and then the imaginary parts together. Last problem, so that we have enough practice practicing simplifying our square roots. So we're going to simplify -25 plus the square root of -50 over 15. First thing I'm going to do, I see a negative inside my square root. Let's take out the I part of the problem. So that's going to give me -25 plus I square roots of 50 all over 15. Now, I'm going to break down 50. So off to the side, probably up here in my space over here, I'm going to do a factor tree from 450 because I can break that down. So 50 is 10 and 5 and 5 and 2. So I did a factor tree. Pairs go on the outside. Everything else goes on the inside. So this is 5 square roots of 2. So we'll put that in a little bubble like I did the other one. So we know that this is just scratch work off to the side to help us with the problem. Now I need to put this back into my problem. So now my problem is -25 plus 5I square root 2 all over 15. So the square root of 50, we replaced that with 5 square roots of 2, but it had an imaginary part to it, which is where the I came from. So the square root of 50 is 5 square roots of 2, and that's where my I came from. From here, I can simplify my fractions. -25 over 15 can be simplified, and 5 over 15 can be simplified. So -25 over 15 simplifies to -5/3. And 5 over 15 simplifies to 1/3. So we're going to get 1/3 I square root 2. Okay, again, negative 25 over 15, we reduce the fraction that reduces to negative 5/3. 5 over 15 reduces to 1/3. So this is our final answer. And there we have it. So now we've gone through, we've added, subtracted, multiplied, and divided, and we simplified our square roots with the complex numbers.